Our question today continues with, how do we deal with unmet expectations? This is from Hunter and Chelsea in Aledo, Texas. And parts of the information today come from the Re-Engage program from Watermark Church in Dallas. If you're in need of an in-person course to help you with your marriage, see the link below and find a location near you that can help you. By the way, Debster.
Yes?
Did I tell you that I met a microbiologist the other day?
I did not know that.
He was bigger than I thought he'd be.
Sorry.
So, that was bad. So, wow. I'll let you talk now.
Okay, expectations. These are the beliefs that we have created over time about the way things will be or the way things should be. And this includes how we are or the people around us should be, or how they should behave, or the roles that we should have about relationships. Sometimes it plays out even about roles in life and expectations about death and reality, and I could go on and on and on. But let me offer you just a few things to consider as you begin your workout of your marriage relationship. Remember, we are or will be conducting your marriage, you will, in a fallen world, in a culture that often delights in people failing. So understand that one imperfect person plus another imperfect person does not and really cannot equal a perfect person.
Never.
No. So remember, you're a sinner who is or will be married to another sinner. And that formula kind of goes like this. One sinner plus another sinner equals marriage is hard.
Marriage is very hard.
That's right. Remember, there's some expectations you will need to die for or die to. In the New Testament, the great missionary Paul, he reminds us that we need to die to ourselves daily. Jesus said, take up your cross. And when he said that, he means let's die to those things that are very selfish. How do we do that? Well, we yield or we give up, and we relinquish to God our selfish wants, our selfish needs, and our selfish desires. But God is a loving God and a faithful God, and he'll be there in the midst of all of it to help us.
He sure will.
So where do our expectations come from? Well, expectations can come from our parents, the way we were brought up, the culture that was there in our family, and the things that we learned as we were in our family. We could have been
all the things we saw.
All the things
up.
we saw. We could have been an only child. We could have been a child with 7 kids in them, like Greg was. And then those kind of dynamics and those kind of cultures are a little bit different for both of us. It might come from our culture, not just our family culture, but our city culture. Maybe we're country people. Maybe we're city people. Maybe we're rednecks. Maybe we're
TV, movies.
Yes. Those things as well. And these days, social media, of course.
Social media, yes.
And it can come from previous relationships that we've had, our preconceived notions about those things, and sometimes it can be the church.
Yeah. When talking about some of the things we saw growing up, it may be, the knight in shining armor or the damsel in distress,
The whole Disney syndrome,
Exactly,
yes.
exactly. We want to reiterate what we learned in part 1. Desires are better than expectations because a desire is a request while an expectation is a demand. Also, we learned that expectations can lead to assumptions. The Fonz himself, Henry Winkler, said, assumptions are the termites of a relationship. And you know that termites are very destructive.
Yes, I don't know personally because we've never had that problem.
Thankfully, I'm glad.
Yeah, thankfully.
Please remember, if you've received any value at all, please like, subscribe, and recommend us to your family and friends, at least the married ones, because marriage is hard.
Marriage is hard. So, what happens to our expectations when they're not met? In part 1, Greg kind of talked about that a little bit, and I want to expound on that. So what they can do is they can lead to feelings of sadness. Now this is kind of a step here. So it can lead to feelings of sadness, which then leads us to feelings of disappointment, where we then move on to feelings of frustration, and then we get angry, and then we find ourselves filled with bitterness. Bitterness is like walking up to the edge of a canyon, right to the rim, and we're standing just millimeters from destruction. The canyon is divorce.
Ooh, that's bad.
Yeah. We will be well served to examine our expectations to see if they are rooted in any reality. One time, we had a couple that came to that we'd done their pre-marriage with, and they called us up and said, we need to come over and talk to you about something. We're having problems. And basically she said, he never fixes anything.
Well, that's not good.
No. So we sat them down and we were trying to ask them what was going on. And she said, he never fixes anything. He said, no, whoa, I do fix things. And she said, no, he doesn't. The drawer was broken and he called somebody out to fix it. And the new husband said,
doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah, the new husband said, I got it fixed. It was broken and you needed it fixed, so I got it fixed. She goes, I just thought when we got married that you would be like my dad was, and you would bring out your toolbox and you would fix things that got broke in the house, because that's the way my dad always did it. So the problem there was she had an expectation that was vocalized. She didn't articulate that with him, and so he didn't realize that it was going to mean a lot to her for him to personally fix it. Because why? What house did he grow up in?
Well, he grew up in a house that was his dad wasn't very handy, so he didn't fix anything himself, and so he never taught his son how to fix things. His dad had called people to come fix things, so that's what he knew, and that's what he carried on.
Yeah. So, she said he never fixed anything. He said he did. If they'd let this go, if they hadn't called us up and said, help us out with this, and we hadn't gotten it figured out, they would begin to progress to a place of an unhealthy marriage. And in an unhealthy marriage is where unmet expectations crop up, and this leads to disappointment, yep. Which then, if it's allowed to grow, leads to disconnecting, which over time can, there again, slow walk us right to the edge or the rim of disaster of divorce.
We don't want that.
No. The English poet Alexander Pope is well known for his line that goes like this: blessed is he who expects nothing, for he shall never be disappointed. Now,
I don't want to be disappointed.
No, I don't want to be disappointed either. But on the flip side, the progression of a healthy marriage is this: unmet expectations lead to discovery, and then to personal responsibility and change, which then leads to deeper commitment to your spouse. You don't develop courage by being happy in your relationships every day. You develop it by surviving difficult times and challenging adversity. That was Epicurus that said that.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of opportunities for challenges because marriage is hard.
You're exactly right. So kick out the unbrothers.
That could be the unsisters.
It could be the unsisters, but I'm talking, so I'm going to say the unbrothers.
So be aware of what you expect.
That's right. And you also want to be reasonable in what you expect.
Be open about what you expect.
And then be willing to listen to the Lord in the change. I really do believe James in the Bible, in the New Testament, when he says in James 1:5, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives us generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him.
I agree with Dave Willis when he said, there is no challenge strong enough to destroy your marriage as long as you're both willing to stop fighting against each other and start fighting for each other.
Wow, that is really good.
So even after all this wonderful insight and information, some of you are still saying, but I just can't live without expectations. If that's the case, let me give you a few expectations you can lean on. You can lean on God's word because it will never return void and his promises are true.
That's true.
Jesus Christ suffered, he died on the cross, he was buried, and he rose again on the third day. Also, there is no sin so great that God can't forgive if you confess, turn away from your sin, and trust the promise of his forgiveness because of the gospel. And, most importantly, Jesus is coming again. We are Debster and Greg on marriage. We love y'all and want the best for you in your marriage, because when you have a better marriage,
your kids will have a better life.
Please watch other videos.